from somebody that can work 120 hours a week, I was dragging my feet to work. Something came up, which is the 1MDB moment. Because of the 1MDB moment, I felt that this industry was a bit too much for me. I resigned without any offer on the table.
Welcome back to the Are We OK podcast, where we talk about politics and public policies in ways that are relevant to you guys. I'm Dr. Ong or Dr. Bota, and Peter is not here with us today because he's on assignment. So we've invited a fellow Bota with us here today on this special episode.
You have to make do with me. I think I've seen how Peter performs on your podcast. I think I'll try to measure up to his capabilities.
It's our pleasure to have Encik Ibrahim Sani, the CEO of Yayasan Peneraju, here with us. So welcome, my fellow Botak brother.
This is an awesome gig you got here.
It's quite comfortable, yes?
It is very comfortable, it's very cozy, and I've seen some of your episodes and it's awesome. And you know, I wish you all the best in this adventure. I tell you, the ability for you to have your own podcast and speak your own mind and share your own views is not just liberating, it is actually your true calling actually.
It's sometimes quite cathartic, right? You are able to share certain views and espouse them and get them off your chest.
Yes, exactly. Instead of just telling it to your friend and then telling your friend, please don't share to others.
Okay. So Ibrahim will be in a good position to express all these things because previously, in a previous life, he was in media. And before that, you were in the corporate sector, including a couple of stints in a few banks. So for those of you who, for those who, in the audience who don't know who you are, where you're coming from, you want to do a bit of introduction?
So I got poor grades in university. I got a degree in accounting from UIA. And all my friends are having at least a 3.0 CGPA or a 3.5, and they always get better jobs than I did.
Okay.
And we're recording here in Kota Damansara, and I have lived here since I moved back from Kuantan because my ex-wife was a medical student in UIA. The first few months was extremely rough. We had a baby. I didn't have a job. She immediately got a job because she's a houseman at the time. It was very debilitating for me, especially when it comes to self-esteem, because I couldn't have a job. So what I did was I did a home delivery service. I partnered with a Chinese Muslim restaurant. Haji Sharin Lau restaurant, and
they have a few branches in Bangi.
Yeah. Yes. So what they needed help with distribution. I was doing home to home delivery. Literally walked on foot at section 8, section 5, section 7, all in Kota Damansara. That was how I made ends meet.
Wow.
To
what year was this?
2007.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, I was part of the team that was part of the Arwah Tan Sri Khalid Ibrahim effort to help Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim and his party to get better results in 2008.
And this was the former Menteri Besar of Selangor.
Yes, the former Menteri Besar of Selangor. At that point in time, of course not.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then of course 2008 came. It was a watershed moment. Barisan Nasional lost 5 states, and then the administration needed a leadership. So Tan Sri Khalid was hoisted to become the Menteri Besar. Arwah becomes the Menteri Besar. And then of course a friend of mine, Yang Berhormat Nurul Izzah, won Lembah Pantai. She defeated a giant, Charizard. Yeah, that's right. And she was wondering how on earth she won. Now what? It's more of that question. Because of my involvement ever since 1998, to be honest, my father was at Setia Murni when the UTK crashed into the house. I was there in Bukit Damansara as a child. I think 14 years old, 13 years old then. So I was there in the consciousness of the Anwar family for quite some time. And at that point in time, Nurul Izzah wanted to have people that she has worked with for a long time. So I ended up working as a principal private secretary to her as her role in her first stint as parliamentarian. And I enjoyed my work, but of course the pay wasn't great. I had a family to take care of. I got a baby. Gaji houseman wasn't a great, and it still isn't until today. And then of course I told her I need to apply for a job. So it turned out being a private secretary to a very popular parliamentarian actually is a better item on my CV line than my CGPA.
Oh, and even though she was, at this point in time an opposition MP.
Oh yeah, actually it was just fine. And the person that the bank that took me in was Cap Islamic Bank. So I started off my career then. And then, of course, Cap was bought over by Hong Leong. So essentially, I moved to another company in a way. Then I went to, all the while I was doing Islamic finance, corporate banking work there. Created a lot of products. It was a go-go time during Malaysia's Islamic finance days. It was growing exponentially. And then, of course, the offer was made to become the special officer of the CEO of CIMB Islamic Bank in 2009. And that was my foray into a larger banking group. And that allowed me to explore a lot more options, working as a young executive in a bank. There, I did debt capital markets. I did Islamic bonds or sukuk. I was part of the product team. And then it turns out that I'm a better talker than I am at creating the products. By the way, I didn't get any training to become a talker. I got training to become a banker through my Bachelor of Accounting days. And of course, and then that was when I pursued my studies further in CIMA or a Chartered Accountancy status. A few years there, and then immediately I was part of the client servicing team. So I was interfacing with a lot of CFOs, trying to sell the banking products and so on. And then I moved into one division into another, later on one company into another. So I left CIMB Islamic to go into CIMB Investment, doing corporate finance, and there was a lot of work there that was needed, especially when it comes to 2010, 2011. There was a lot of mergers happening in the CIMB banking group. So I was part of the CF team or corporate finance team with the CIMB Niaga merger with Bank Lipo, and then later on Lipo Niaga with CIMB.
Yeah, these are the overseas
holdings, that's right. And then of course after that I was transplanted to Manama with CIMB Bahrain, and then CIMB London. And then after a few years, I came back to Malaysia. I did work with CIMB Bank. So that was my first foray into business intelligence work. I had to learn coding, learned a lot when it comes to the advent of technology, when it comes to banking services, especially retail banking services. So that was my first touch base into learning how to sell credit cards and home loans and the like, and understanding what kind of products is good for the country. And that was when I learned capital management, capital adequacy ratio. So I had some stints in treasury, all the while very close to the proximity of the CEOs at that point in time, whether or not it's CIMB Islamic CEO or CIMB Bank CEO or CIMB Investment CEO or CIMB Group CEO. So I had very close interactions with Tengku Zafrul, and then of course Tan Sri Nazir Razak. At that point in time, he was still Datuk Nazir Razak.
Yes, he was that time group chairman?
During my time with his office, he was Group CEO.
Group CEO, okay.
And then when he passed over the baton to Tengku Zafrul, I was reporting to him at the Group CEO's office. So I can tell you that my learning growth was exponential. Everything is a trade-off, right? So I spent a lot of time at work, so much so that when we tabulated the hours that I did, it was 120 hours per week on average.
Oh, wow, okay.
And if you split that, it becomes 14 to 16 hours a day.
And this was when CIMB's office was still in
Semantan.
In Semantan. Okay.
Yes. In fact, I was one of the first tenants that entered the new building in Menara CIMB in front of Sogo. Later on, I was one of the first few tenants that went into the Menara CIMB at KL Central. So it's always nice to go into a new office every time. But something came up, which is the 1MDB moment. It was 2013, 2014, at the precipice of the breakout of the news of 1MDB. I was part of the team that did the 1MDB Suku. Now, I was not directly involved in it, but I was part of the team that was processing it.
Just to be clear, I think there were other banks involved as well, right?
Of course. There were a lot of banks involved, you're right. We could sense that something was wrong with this. And it didn't sit well with me, because as far as my career was with the banking group, I'm not going to lie, money was good. Experience was good, and they were financing everything, including my education and the likes, and I was actually able to support my family quite comfortably. But then, because of the 1MDB moment, I felt that this industry was a bit too much for me.
Okay.
So I resigned. I resigned without any offer on the table.
But was it because you felt you had to compromise certain principles in some of the deals that you were doing?
Not directly, but what I felt was, I felt that I couldn't do this job any longer now that I know that 1MDB was the topic of the day, and this was what banking can do to the country. It was very much of that notion. So, I at that point in time, I spoke to my ex-wife. I said, actually, I should tell you the story, Kian Ming. I was dragging my feet to work. You know, from somebody that can work 120 hours a week, I was dragging my feet to work. I still turned up, not so much because it was a part of the job requirement to go to office, but responsibility. You know, I get paid. I don't want to be called stealing money by curi tulang. You know, just going to work and not work. So I still turned up at the office, but it wasn't the same as before. And the day that I went to work, I normally am the first to arrive at Menara Bumiputera Commerce in front of Sogo. I am normally the guy that moves the cone from the car park to enter the house. What do call it? The car park from the house, right?
And this was probably around 7 o'clock or even before
7,
that?
slightly before, 6:45, something like that. And then I sat there and I sat in the car for 4 hours. I was actually listening to BFM the whole time.
Okay.
In the car park. And then my ex-wife called me and said, hey, you know, I wanted to ask you about this and that, some random stuff. And then I said, yeah, but hey, I'm still in the car park. And she said, hey, but it's 10, 11 o'clock. What are you doing in the car park? I said, I don't know. I can't bring myself to enter the office. I was already at the building, but I couldn't bring myself to enter to the office. And I said, you know, I think I'm going to tender. I'm going to sign my tender resignation today. Are we going to be cool with it? And she's like, okay, what about money? Right? I said, we'll sort that out. Right? But if you're not okay with this, I won't resign. But if you're okay with this, I will.
And she knew the reasons why
She knew the reasons, of course, because, you know, who else am I going to complain about my existential being here, right? So she said, yeah, I'm behind you. I'm for you. I'll support you. Do what you think is best. So I got out of the car, went upstairs, tendered my resignation, and then my manager found out. My manager brought me down for lunch at Capital Cafe. If you guys are aware of Jalan Tukar Rahman, it was a very muhibah cafe. And he said, why are you resigning? And I gave my reasons. And he said, okay, if that's the case, I'll support you. But do you have any other offers on the table? Of course not. So for 3 months, so the notice period is 3 months.
And this was around 2014.
2014. And while I was serving notice, I really took time off. I just wanted to see what I can do with my life. I was at a friend's party, and I was talking at length about 1MDB, some of the inside baseball kind of stuff, and then a person from BFM was there, and that person said, "Hey, you sound like you know terribly a lot about this item, and it sounds like you know how to speak, and you speak rather well, eloquently. Would you like to get paid for talking?" I said, sure. At that point in time, I needed a job. What I didn't realize was it was a morning run presenter role.
Okay.
At the very show that I listen to every morning.
Yes.
And you're there. You know, you were there
I've
the
been there
whole
before,
time.
yeah.
You were there the whole time. You know, we always tweet on I don't know whether it's still active on Twitter.
Yeah,
or
a bit lah, but less so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but during that time, Twitter was everything, right? Especially when it comes to people like us voicing our concerns, your voice, my voice, every other people's voices. And I said, sure, let's do this. And then, of course, the old gang was there. Melissa Idris, Julian Ng, David Chew, Kusu Chuang, Noel Lim.
Yep.
You know, it's the gang.
Yeah,
right?
the sort of like
Sharat
originators.
The originators. And at that point in time, there was a bit of reshuffling. People were leaving the morning run for other shows, evening edition and so on. So they kind of needed a voice to partner up with Kusu Chuang, Julian Ng, Melissa Idris, Sharat Kutin. So they figured maybe and it was tactical, and I can say this now, it was very tactical to get a Malay male voice there as well. So as to not make this a libertarian urbanite voice, a person that can actually see the point of view of the conservative kind of point of view, or even the establishment kind of point of view, when it comes to some social contract issues. Yes, that's right. So I have strong views on Bumiputera shape and so on like that. I do have a strong view on, say, the institusi Raja and all that. So they felt that, all right, this guy is onto something. So let's get him. I don't see eye to eye with my old gang, and that's great apparently, because we want that kind of
tension,
right? And we can discuss this, you know, in a way where rather cordially, but because of our strong opinions. It made for good conversation to be had for your early morning drive.
Yeah, I remember you, Kusu Chuang, you know, sometimes you guys, because you guys are, you know, in your personality can also be very straightforward.
Yeah. I mean, I still hate him until today. So, you know, I mean, we get into fist fights. But jokes aside, those were the days lah. What they didn't tell me was they were going to pay me 40% of what I was going to earn.
I was going to ask you that because,
So they're very sneaky, these BFM people.
Yeah.
They don't pay you well.
Yeah, the owner was a former sort of like a colleague of mine at a consulting firm.
Oh, is it Malay?
Yes, of course.
But I took it because I said I wanted to have a mouthpiece. I wanted to speak my views, and I don't know whether I was going to get into trouble. I did get the station into trouble. There were some letters and stuff like that coming in from MCMC at that point in time.
Which issues do you remember?
1MDB.
Okay.
Mostly 1MDB.
Okay.
And it was under the Najib Razak administration. And it was not that, people give a lot of flag in terms of how the government today is run. I'm telling you, 2014, people tend to forget. You would not forget. I know this.
Of course, yeah.
But many do forget how it was back in 2014, 2015.
They're very heavy-handed, especially on 1MDB related issues.
Very.
Yeah.
And but I said, I'm a crusader. I'm on a mission. So let's do this, right? So I did the Arul Kanda interview. I did the Najib Razak interview. I did the Zahid Hamidi interview, and so on. It was pretty heavy lah, senang kata.
Do you think that was a sort of like a bit of a highlight in terms of your
broadcasting career? Yes, absolutely. Which is sad because when you start off there, So of course then Awani came about and they said, you don't. There are I mean, no disrespect to my ex-colleagues or current colleagues at BFM, but I'm they say this you have a face for radio. But the Awani CEO came about, the editing chief also said, you have a face for TV, so let's do this.
Okay.
So the reason I went to Awani was two main reasons. Number one, it paid better and it had better perks. And of course, if Malik, you're watching this, don't worry, I love you. And BFM did well. But people have to remember that BFM is not the size of Astro. And people understand this. That's why BFM gave a lot of leeway for its presenters to
do other stuff outside.
Other stuff outside. No, I've never had that opportunity. Coming from a bank, it was very strange for me to have dua kerja. Very strange, because a bank is a bank. You're basically indentured servitude to the
120 hours.
No, absolutely, right. But BFM is like, okay, you're in morning run. You come in at 5 a.m. and by 10 you're done. So I said, what do I do with the rest of my time? It's on you. You want to make ends meet, go for it. If you want to just chill,
it's up to you. Yeah,
up to you. Now, that kind of freedom I've never had and I've never enjoyed, and that allowed me to be a little bit more creative into how I hustle for cash.
Yes.
So that was how I made ends meet.
Yeah, you had corporate gigs, interviews.
I did interviews, and corporate gigs, MCing, consulting. There's a lot of others. But it was a lot of hustling, and that's fine because I was still a young man then. So went to TV, and then TV was fun. I managed a few shows. I was the lead editor for the business desk as well as the English desk, so 2 desks.
Did you have to sort of like moderate some of your views during that time?
Yes, I had to because Awani being Astro is not as guerrilla as BFM. But I also grew a little bit more matured and less agitated because I saw there was some progress when it comes to 1MDB. There was some progress, and I felt that, okay, things are moving. I don't have to be as gung-ho as before. And true enough, 2018 came about. And then, of course, Najib was replaced as the Prime Minister. Tun Mahathir came about. Things settled down a bit. And then, of course, we had 3 more years or 4 more years to that effect. And then I felt that I have done all I could in the realm of broadcasting.
So let me just ask you on that part. When there was a change in government and also change in Prime Minister, especially the change in government part, first time that's happened in Malaysian history. From the media perspective, from the media side, did you feel that there was suddenly some sort of pressure lifted, for you guys? You could ask different kinds of questions. You could be a bit more...
you hit the nail on the head on this one, Gamin, because yes, everything was free. It became liberating. In fact, BFM could no longer have that badge of honor saying that they are the first to market. There were a lot of people to market, and just like any other businesses, the moment there's a lot of players in the market, you lose that pioneering status, and you lose that. You will forever have that pioneering status, but because there were a lot more players in the market.
Yeah, maybe like Malaysia Kini during the day 1999.
Yeah, exactly, 1999. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, you're right. So things are lifted, and if people think that there seems to be some form of cuckolded in terms of how media is representing current affairs. It was far, far worse than before. Today, I think it's much more liberating. Maybe not as liberating as, for instance, in Indonesia, for instance, but it is not like before.
Yeah, you don't have this Damocles sword hanging over your head. Thinking that your license will be withdrawn from you anytime.
Absolutely.
Which is what happened to The Age, weekly
Yes.
during Najib's time.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the proof is in the pudding. The World Press Freedom Index has increased. I mean, it bobbles up and down every now and then, but we were, I don't remember the listings, but we were close to some African countries even at one point in time. Now we are there, middling. So we're nowhere near the Scandinavian kind of ranking just yet. But is this in the step direction? Absolutely.
Yeah,
and,
I would agree.
And it doesn't matter whether or not it's Tun Mahathir or Ismail Sabri or Zaid Hamidi or Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim. We are heading in the right direction in terms of being a little bit more open in terms of discussing current affairs and political affairs right now.
Yeah, and with that, I'd like to take a short break, and then when we come back, we're going to ask Ibrahim about his role at Yayasan Peneraju, YP. Be right back. Welcome back to the Are We OK podcast, where we're talking to Encik Ibrahim Sani, an old friend from the media, and now CEO of YP or Yayasan Peneraju, a role that he's taken since November 2023. So, what was the sort of like attraction of this role that made you want to apply for the position? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you managed to be appointed to this position. Did you pitch to the Minister, Rafizi Ramli, who is the Minister of Economy, or did somebody from his office or somebody in the establishment approach you for this role?
Before I forget, Kian Ming, you were the first interviewee of mine after the 2018 election. We went to some random place in Bangsa, looks like a gedong, and you have been my interviewee when I was in BFM and then Astro, and then of course in your stint as a Timbalan Menteri of MITI at one time, and it feels surreal to be interviewed by you. It's just, I just got to put it out
it's
there.
It's good to have the tables turned, and I'm glad that we have.
I don't know whether you're going to be leveling stuff, because I was nasty to you when I was an interviewer. So I pray to God you're going to be kind to me. Back to your question. Let's give a little bit of history. There are a handful of agencies under the Kementerian Ekonomi.
Yeah.
The Kementerian Ekonomi has appeared in various forms and fashion.
Sometimes under the PM's department, PMO, sometimes out of the PMO. Yeah.
Sometimes in the PMO, sometimes it's called the EPU. At one point in time, it was called the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and then of course now in its current iteration, it's called the Kementerian Ekonomi.
Or KE for short. Yeah.
Or KE for short. That's right. And the corridors under the ministry, there's
DOSM.
DOSM is under the
Department
ministry.
of Statistics. Yeah.
And 3 agencies that are mandated to carry out the Bumiputera initiatives. Teraju, Yayasan Peneraju, as well as Equinas. And then after this Kerajaan Gabungan took over, and Datuk Sri Rafizi was mandated to take over the Ministry of Economy, he wanted to do a quick rethink into how Teraju and Yayasan Peneraju is being run. And there were 2 vacancies in terms of the CEO role for Teraju and Yayasan Peneraju. And he did something crazy. I'm telling you, this is crazy. Because the role of a CEO, quite unheard of, it is open to the public to apply. Normally it's a headhunted role, or it is a political appointed role, or it is normally you as the chairman of the board or any of that board membership kind of role. You already have some of the names on top of your head.
Yeah, and people will automatically also give you certain names,
Yes, yes. But with Yang Muhammad Rafizi, he did the unthinkable. He did a press conference and said that the 2 job positions of CEO of Teraju and Yayasan Peneraju is now open to the public to be applied by anyone. And you can actually Google this press conference on YouTube. It's still there. So I didn't think I had a shot at it.
Which one? Peneraju or Yayasan?
Okay.
Teraju or Yayasan?
You know
Peneraju?
what? I'm going to say this, and this will be heard for the first time ever in the public domain.
Okay.
So you have an exclusive.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Thank you.
This also means you have to be kinder to me, okay? I hope you tak marah-marah I lagi. He said in the press conference, Yayasan Peneraju, the CEO role of Yayasan Peneraju as well as the CEO role of Teraju is now open to the public. Anybody can apply. I applied on Job Street Kian Ming, for the role of CEO of Teraju. That's the this is
Okay. First time.
You're the first
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
I applied for Teraju CEO role.
And Teraju, you applied for that role because it was more to do with Bumiputera entrepreneurship and business development.
Yes.
That angle appealed to you a bit more.
Only because that was the kind of experience that I've had. Right, I was in business banking in CIMB. I was in corporate banking in Hong Leong Islamic. I was in corporate finance. I understood that role, and during my years in broadcast, either in BFM or in Astro Awani, that was also the kind of areas that I was busying myself with. I was preoccupied with the issues of corporate Malaysia and of course SMEs of Malaysia and the like. So. And Teraju, for the benefit of your viewers, it is more of the developmental role that it plays in terms of shaping the Bumiputera entrepreneurship in the realm of small to medium-sized businesses. So I felt that it was an easier fit for me, and I applied for that role. And there were, to my last count, 6 rounds of interviews that I had to go through. First of all, I didn't even expect that my CV was going to be picked up. Let's be honest.
Okay.
At the back of my mind, quite frankly, I still thought it was going to be a political appointment because I just felt, okay, maybe Rafizi says this, maybe he's a politician, maybe he says this because of lip service or whatever.
Yeah, but then someone will put a CV,
put a CV somewhere,
inside,
slid there somewhere, right? And it turns out no. I was picked up by an entry-level PTD officer, grade 41, 44, and I was actually shocked to receive that call. He said, okay, Encik Ibrahim, you're called for interview, and then please come. I said, okay, sure.
So who interviewed you for the first few
I
rounds?
was some officer from Kementerian Ekonomi. And then that was the first interview. And then, of course, it just gradually went up. Pop. And then the final round of interview, I was with the board of trustees of both Teraju and Yayasan Peneraju, which is the Ketua Setiausaha or Chief Secretary of Kementerian Ekonomi and the Minister himself. And we had a bit of a testy kind of conversation, because I basically said, I don't know what you think of me, but I'm rather outspoken and I have very strong opinions on a certain item. And, for all intent and purposes, I have a lot of, run-ins with my supervisors, either at, CIMB or BFM or Astrawani. So if you're getting me, you got to be very clear in terms of what you are purchasing lah. You're purchasing a talent. So I said, these are the things that I want to do, and it may or may not jive with the board's direction and the board's plans. In fact, the country's direction in terms of how they want to shape Bumiputera talents, either in Yayasan Peneraju or Bumiputera policy in terms of Teraju.
What specific aspects do you think would not have been something that you thought that the minister or the KSU would not have wanted to hear?
Increased entrepreneurship angle of Bumiputera businesses and talents. Because I thought they would be more interested in getting more coverage.
News coverage or media coverage? Or
political coverage.
Okay, political coverage.
Political. Do things that would benefit people more because it made it popular. Populist lah. Populist policies. I'm not too sure whether what I said was going to be a populist approach. Because I don't know Rafizi.
Okay.
I know him as much from a
media
perspective lah, and I have done 1 or 2 interviews with him, but I would know you more than I would know him.
Tak pernah pergi minum teh tarik.
Tak pernah. I've never drank teh ke apa, air kosong pun aku tak pernah. Right? So I just said this is it, right? And then I think a few weeks passed, and I got an email saying that you have thank you for your application for the CEO of Teraju, and we appreciate your time, but we will not pursue this opportunity with you. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, because I never thought I would get the job anyway. A few days later, the HR person of Yayasan Peneraju called. Encik Ibrahim, you have been selected to be the CEO of Yayasan Peneraju.
Okay. So you applied for one job and then you got the other.
Yeah.
Another, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't know what Yayasan Peneraju does. I honestly don't know. I have interviewed the ex-CEO of Yayasan Peneraju, Raja Azura, But it was more of like she was running a program or campaign, and I was interviewing. I really don't know what Yayasan Peneraju did prior to that phone call that I got from the HR.
The details,
The details, the nitty-gritty stuff and all that. So I said, I mean, it's a CEO job, man. Of course, I said, well, thank you. I accept this with my full heart. Let's talk money. That's what I mean. But when I put on the phone, I called up another friend who was an agency, media agency for Yayasan Peneraju. So of course, she would know at length about what Yayasan Peneraju does.
She tanya, apa mereka ni buat?
That was my exact question. Diorang buat apa? And then like, why? Why do you want to know? Don't worry about why I want to know. But diorang buat apa? Oh, you nak interview diorang? No. Then she's so hard, right, in terms of getting through. So I said, okay lah, macam ni, I'm selected with the CEO of Yayasan Peneraju. She started shouting, she's like, oh my God, okay, because compared to previous CEOs, you're going to be great, she said. I said, okay, still, you're not answering my question. What do they do? So she said, okay, where are you? Let's meet up, because this is not a phone call kind of conversation. So okay, I said, okay, I'm in this area and all that. So we met up. She went at length about what Yayasan Peneraju does. And then I said, okay, so this is what they do. And at my first thought is, okay, so Rafizi is doing the unconventional, opening the thing to the public. Rafizi is doing the unconventional, putting me in an education line. I've never done that before. I mean, I don't do terribly well in education in academia, okay? I'm not like you, my friend. You terror.
No,
okay?
So actually I need to make a certain clarification point here. Studying and doing well in exams is different from talent development. Right? And I think this is something that you will go into in terms of your role in Yayasan Peneraju.
Actually, my friend. But I said, okay, am I cut out for this job? So this friend of mine, this mutual friend of ours, said, first of all, you're not going there to develop talent programs and stuff like that, or talent development programs. You're there as the guy that brings about governance, integrity, accounting, manage development funds versus operational funds. And I'm like, okay, when you touch on all these, headings, right? I'm like, okay, I know this like the back of my hand. Sebenarnya, talent development itself, I don't know. As a curriculum structure or as a competency in my talent development progress over the past few years of me being a workforce or in the workforce. While that may not be my core competency, the others are very well. So much so that I can interrogate, not just interview. I can interrogate CEOs, big and small. Kedutaan, whatever, I can do that. That's not a problem. Multiple times, I've interviewed CEOs.
You've interviewed, former prime ministers, and
yeah, right. So that is not the heart palpitation that I'm going through when it comes to competencies. So I'm pretty okay at that, right? Or at least I think I am. I hope I am. And okay, so I said, so it's not as daunting as I initially thought lah. All right. And then of course, when I went into the job, I went to the job knowing that there is only one thing that matters, which is the intention of the ministry's direction and ministry's policy when it comes to the Bumiputera direction.
So what mandate did the minister or the KSU give to you in terms of your role at YP?
The mandate is, and I'll state this unequivocally, to grow Bumiputera talents to become economic multipliers.
Okay.
All right. So when I asked,
but specifically, not when you say grow Bumiputera talent, for economic multiplier activity, it is not in the entrepreneurship ecosystem that is taken care of by Peneraju and others also. But this is specifically in what space?
In academic space, because when we train talents, especially Bumiputera talents, it is to what end? Yayasan Peneraju has uplifted 100% of CFA charter holders for Bumiputera talents. Prior to Yayasan Peneraju, maybe people don't know this, I'll share some numbers. In Malaysia, there are 1,300 CFA charter holders. 200 are Bumiputeras. Of that 200, 100 was trained by Yayasan Peneraju over the past 13 years. So safe to say, without Yayasan Peneraju, we would not have twofold the number of Bumiputera charter holders. That is CFA. Accounting, we are contributing to 10% of MIA numbers.
MIA is the Malaysian Institute of Accountants.
Malaysian Institute of Accountants.
Through the different professional certifications.
Yes, that's true. So Malaysian Institute of Accountants, the statutory organisation that looks into the development and the regulatory body that sits inside the MOF to look into the profession of chartered accountancy. And they have about roughly 33,000 members. 3,000 were created by Yayasan Peneraju. So All these are good numbers.
Yeah.
They are fantastic numbers, and that is just in the profession of business services and professional services. But to what end? Are they economic multipliers for the nation, or are they glorified workers?
Maybe just for themselves and
Yes.
doesn't really contribute to so that was what you were trying to...
Untangle or unravel or at least improve on. And there's this big question of how many of them have left for entrepreneurship. You're right. You're absolutely right. The development of entrepreneurs is done by Teraju. But to create the number of people that want to dabble into entrepreneurship, that belongs solely inside Yayasan Peneraju, because that falls solely on the part of talent development. So that was the mandate that was given to me, unequivocally, to train people to become economic multipliers. Now, economic multipliers to the country doesn't necessarily mean, as you know, doesn't necessarily mean dollars and cents sahaja. It can also mean social contributors or impact investing, or people that can actually attribute or contribute to the people, to their society, either at a micro level or at large. So hence, one of the first few things that we did was to outline or design a program to create leaders, not just the volume of people that we train inside Yayasan Peneraju. We are there to create 3 types of leaders. They are congruent with one another, but they are distinct in the sense that we have classified them to be professional leaders, people that can lead their professions and career inside the professional space. Business leaders, self-explanatory, i.e. people that are employers or potential employers or that can employ others. And social leaders. Social leaders are impact leaders that can contribute, not necessarily in monetary terms, but at least in services and, of course, community services to their population. Those were the first things that we did when I first joined at Yayasan Peneraju, to define what we want to do over the next at least 7 years, because we were at the tail end of the 12th Malaysia Plan, and we want to enter into the 13th Malaysia Plan. So we're looking at
So before you came in, I think maybe you can clarify, the programs were more towards just getting professional accreditation in certain professional fields like CFA and accounting. That was sort of like the main focus.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. Previously, prior to my leadership at Yayasan Peneraju and prior to the leadership of Yang Muhammad Rafizi, it was that. Go for certifications. Get more Bumiputera talents to be certified in all areas.
Yeah, which is an important national agenda.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Now the question is, what's next? Because now we have a lot of Bumiputeras that are accredited, but the numbers still fall short when it comes to uplifting the entrepreneurship level, uplifting the economic level, or being social impactors or community leaders in the community. That is the part where we need to address and seek. So that led to us creating the Putra 35 of the or policy or the Bumiputera Economic Transformation Plan 2035, because we were Kementerian Ekonomi are one of 2 kementerians that were entrusted to carry out a Bumiputera Transformation Plan when it comes to economic policies for the next 2035, 11 years, 10 years, yeah. The other one being the Minister of Rural Development, led by Datuk Sri Zaid Amidi. So they had one angle, and we had another angle, and we combined it, and hence we created the Putra 35 document.
That was launched by the Prime Minister in 2024.
Yes, early of 2024. Because I took over Yayasan Peneraju at the tail end of 2023. My God, it has been that long, my friend.
Yeah, not yet 2 years yet, but about 1.5 coming to one.
It feels like eternity. I can tell you that. I mean, this is not a job to be trifled with.
Sure,
it is a very, very tiring and heavy responsibility. Being in broadcast is so easy because you come to work and you just say whatever you want and you go home, and you don't use public funds and all that because it's a private corporation, whatever, right? This is a big, big task because at the end of the day, I am very cognizant that this is public money, public affairs, and the responsibility is actually quite heavy, which brings to mind, I don't know why people want to seek for public office.
We'll come back to that, but maybe you want to elaborate on the other 2 sort of like pillars. You talked about the professional certification and qualifications aspect. Then there's the leadership aspect, and also there's the sort of like a business leadership, and then there's social leadership.
Yeah,
You want to talk
political
more
leadership.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so business leadership is the easiest to explain. We know that there are various functions that the country needs that is lacking. I'll just take the most recent example, the Johor Singapore Southern Economic Zone, which you are extremely familiar with. When we talk about creating industries in semiconductor, for instance, or industries in cooling, data centers, we can invite large corporations to come, and big names, global names, right? Anywhere from Tencent to Intel to AT&S to whatever you have, right? They want supporting industries to supplement and complement their existing industries part
of the supply chain. Yes,
that's right.
You can say the same for the auto sector as well, for example.
Absolutely. So auto sector is the best because being a CIMA charter holder, I am very much cognizant of the fact that cost accounting is actually very crucial when it comes to manufacturing. Fun fact, apparently CIMA was created by engineers, not accountants.
Okay.
Because of the need to manage that supply chain.
Okay.
These companies, and you know this from your experience in MITI, the first thing they ask is, who are the micro suppliers and the chain suppliers and the contributing businesses to help support the bigger industries. And right now, Malaysia is in dire need of that little space, right? Where small and medium-sized enterprises can come and supplement the big corporations.
Yeah, but you are not in charge of creating those enterprises.
No.
Yes, yeah.
But we are in charge of creating the necessary talents to support those enterprises.
Yeah, so how does Peneraju YP step in this area?
So YP steps in. Hence, we streamlined our offerings. So previously, we offered over 560 programs.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot. Nobody can recite the whole thing, right? Now we're offering just two big ones, Peneraju Professional and Peneraju Technology. Within it, there's a few others, of course, the breakdown. But generally speaking, what we're doing is we're training people to be just competent in the broad areas, so much so that if they so choose to want to zoom in on a particular profession or a particular skill set, they can have that option to do so. Say, for instance, in the realm of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, the most popular certification is ITIL. ITIL 1 until ITIL 4. ITIL 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can offer that to our scholars. They come in, they take that opportunity up, and then they get certified for ITIL 1. If they want to get further certifications to ITIL 2, 3, 4, they can do so at their own choosing, or through their employer, or through other funders, right? There are plenty of funders, or they're self-funded, whatever. That is just a classic example into how we are empowering our talents to, first of all, give them the basic education background in terms of training, to give them the necessary means for them to have an intelligent solutioning moment with their employers or with themselves, if they so choose to become entrepreneurs, to have that meaningful conversation. Because if they didn't even go through the basic level of ITIL 1, for instance, it's impossible for them to know the right questions to ask. They don't know what they don't know, right?
Or the right skills to develop, or the right people to hire next time when
Absolutely,
they are
right? I mean, you can't have an intelligent question if you don't know what the realm of business that you're talking about, right? So that is the kind of space that we play. And then, of course, we did a secondary notion. That the first area is getting them to be preoccupied with the kind of basic trainings that they need. By the way, the basic trainings are not really basic, right? They are AWS cloud computing, they are SAP accounting, financial accounting. They are not that basic, so to speak, but they are very basic if they want to go into a micro zoom area into supporting mega industries, like, for instance, the Johor Singapore.
So your target audience in this regard would be people who have already been in the workforce for a few years. They want to upskill themselves. They want to expand their horizons, and then you bring them into your ecosystem to give them this kind of training, and hopefully use them as examples for others and highlight their economic multipliers.
You are dead on. I think this is the best interview that I've ever had, because you see where we're heading, and you're right. Because what we need to do is try to refocus this target segment of who will be the beneficiary of Yayasan Peneraju. Previously, it was high schoolers. That was fine. Like I said, that was fine. But now, I can be candid with you, Kian Ming, because there are a lot of players in that space. Right, yes. When it comes to helping high schoolers,
and there's also overlap with the Ministry of Education in a more direct way.
Not just that, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Higher Education, Ministry of Urban Development, and more. Right, but who is playing in the space of uplifting people in the upskilling process of people that have been in the workforce for, let's say, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. In fact, when we did the study at Kementerian Economy level, the biggest problem for people in the unemployed zone to enter into the workforce is because those that are holding entry positions can't upgrade themselves. So in a way, they are kind of hogging the entry-level jobs. So we are in that space of pushing these entry levels to move up in the higher value chain so that they can free up that job, that entry-level jobs for others to come in.
Okay. How about social leadership then?
Okay, social leadership. I'll give you the best story. Alice is a non-Muslim Bumiputera talent in Kota Kinabalu. We found her when she was 13 years old in Kota Kinabalu. We put her through our now defunct Peneraju Tunas program, and we trained her from that level, from the high school level, to get better competencies at the high school level, especially in terms of our nurture and development program, because she gets the technical training from the school itself, from the academia purpose itself. But the nurture and development program that we used to have, now we're redefining it, allows for her to be a little bit more confident, a little bit easy for her to ask questions in her surroundings, questioning everything basically. That allowed for her to go and pursue the FIA Chartered Accountancy status and foundation in ACCA, and then later on ACCA itself. She became a chartered accountant at a very young age, at 20 years old.
Oh, that's very young. Yeah.
Very young. In fact, that is the signature program, so to speak, of Yayasan Peneraju. If Apple has iPhone as their signature program or product, our post SPM accounting is our signature program. So she became a chartered accountant at a very young age. She started off her salary at 4,000 ringgit because that's the average age. That's the average starting salary for people with the affiliate ACCA.
And that's considered very high, I think. For
yes, it is.
Yeah.
But it gets better because after 3 years of on-the-job training, she moves from an affiliate member of ACCA to a full member of ACCA. And at 23, 24, she's a chartered accountant, earning 8,000 ringgit. And we keep track of her, right? Because we have this we call tracer study, where we put her through the program and we monitor her, observe her. We have a lot of nurture and development program along the way. We have mentoring, coaching programs and the like. And then of course she gives back to the community as well and helps the Bumiputera community in Sabah. Many of them are non-Muslim, by the way. Bumiputeras in Semenanjung are Muslims. Bumiputera in Sabah and Sarawak are mixed. Yeah. I wouldn't say one is more or less, but it's mixed. Then we lost her. We didn't know how to track her. She just fell off a map because she resigned from one of the big fours in KL. So she moved from Kota Kinabalu to KL to find opportunities here, which is normal, I guess. Everybody does that. Then we lost track of her for a few years, and then we found her because she saw a call out for an alumni event in Kota Kinabalu, and we met her. And I was seated next to her, and I found out what she was doing for the past 3 years, the 3 missing years, so to speak. She is doing bookkeeping for the religious houses in Kota Kinabalu.
Okay.
She is a
so
member
this would be
of
non-Muslim
that's the beauty of it, right? Initially, she started with her own church, the Sidang Injil Borneo, SIB. So because her own church, what do you call this?
And that's quite a prominent church in Sabah and Sarawak.
It is. But then, she was managing 2 churches of SIB, and then the Catholic Church was also looking for a bookkeeper. She did that work as well.
Okay.
One Gurdwara Sahib was using her as well. And now one mosque is also using her.
Oh, okay. So it's quite muhibah in the Sabah context.
Sabah normal lah muhibah. I mean, the quarrels are between the politicians, not the people. The people are just fine. And that is bringing impact to her community. Unbeknownst to us, she is, by definition, the community leader that we're looking for or we want to create. That is what we want. The problem here is that she became one not through the program design created by...
It's a bit accidental.
Accidental. Yeah. But it is a good story to be created. And I use that story to tell others, these are the kind of stories that I want to extrapolate and amplify. Because it's not all about dollars and cents.
Sure.
We need to... Like I said, the mandate that was given to me by my board is to create economic multiplier. They didn't say make Bumiputeras richer.
Sure.
Itu lain. Though I think that would be one of the agendas. But economic multipliers may mean this as well. So it is in our interest to develop more community multipliers or economic multipliers or impact leaders. And Alice is an example of that.
Yeah. So for example, before we end this segment, it could be that, last time many Bumiputeras, whether in East Malaysia or West Malaysia, don't have role models that have taken CFAs before. But once there are enough of these professionals out there, they can be good role models. They can give instruction. They can give some advice, and then this is how you sort of like generate this kind of a positive spillover effect.
So the word we use is virtuous cycle. Okay, so yalah, I'm in broadcasting kan. So aku pandai ni sikit branding lah sikit kan. Virtuous cycle means you start off with that, right? So the inception has to be there. Somebody has to start doing it. The chicken and egg argument has to be cut across. What comes first? So certifications and trainings has to come first. This is what we call technical training. Then we have development training. That part is where we train people to be functional at the workforce or in their community. So they make use of their certification or their training that they have received from us. It doesn't matter or not whether it's a ACCA, ICAW, CP Australia, CIMA, whatever. And then you take this and now you give back to the community. So you become the mentors and the coaches and the role models for your own community or for your own tribe or for your own clan or for your own people, right? You have to be that role model because people need something. It's called a vision for a purpose. Vision. You have to be able to see it. So if I see this person from nothing, especially coming into something because of the thing that he or she has done, I too can emulate, or I can take it as an amplifying story for me because I can then use this to fit my needs. Okay, that thing is a virtuous cycle. To what end? The virtuous cycle of VC is to become a value creator. And to become an economic multiplier means that you create value, not just adding value, not just managing value, because the way we see it is when it comes to managing the value supply chain, it's not enough to just manage the value. It's not even enough to just add value. When you say, oh, I add value to the organization, good, but that's not enough. You have to create value. You have to do something. You have to be the imaginator and the implementer of something.
The catalyst, the multiplier.
Catalyst.
Yeah.
That is that cream of the crop that we want.
So now, do you have a program, or more formalized program for social leadership now?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So this is part of that virtuous cycle for value creators, or VC squared, that we coin it internally. Externally, we call it our talent bank. So now YP has a talent bank. It's accessible through peneraju.org, and that's when we create not just a more program design centric for creating more value creators in the sense of community leaders, but of business leaders as well as professional leaders as well. So it's a very deliberate, concentrated effort. Hopefully we get it done right, but of course we are always open to pivoting and iterations to make it even better in the future. All
right, so we'll take a break and then we'll come back and ask you about some of the details of these programs and maybe where there are areas for further improvement. I'll be right back. Welcome back to this special segment together with Ibrahim Sani, the CEO of Yayasan Peneraju, or YP as we're calling it on this show. Ibrahim, I'm just going to go into a part that may be a bit more sensitive, but since you've grilled me before, I think I have the right to grill you back. Some of the members of our audience would be of the persuasion that there are so many policies out there and programs and also ministries and agencies that are already helping out the Bumiputera agenda. Isn't yours also one of the many that may compete against others in this ecosystem? And how would you respond to that?
The first thing that I want to say is I think the more we talk about so-called sensitive items, the better.
Okay.
I think things like this, because it is for public funds, the public is entitled to know.
And to have a good explanation.
Of course. I'm a taxpayer. I've been a taxpayer since I was, 24 years old. I want to know. And the answer is because of the social fabric that we have agreed upon when we imbue upon the Constitution. And the idea here is how to make sure that the work that we do today and in the years to come ensures that integrity is being upheld, avoidance of corruption, and making sure that governance is in place. Malaysia has gone through enough when it comes to incompetent, let alone corrupted government. And I'm sorry, this is what it is, right? In fact, if it wasn't, we wouldn't have these kind of changes in 2008, in 2018, right? People want change. And the change that we're talking about right now is not in the dismantlement of the institutions that run Bumiputera programs, for instance, or programs that are preferential of nature. It is more of making the programs that are in place more streamlined and more transparent.
And more effective.
Definitely, right? And if being effective is the byproduct of us being a little bit more streamlined and transparent. So to answer your question directly, that is why there was what we call a realignment of programs for the Bumiputera agenda. We had a big, what do we call?
Congress.
Powwow. Yeah. Actually, I'm alluding to the Sesi Libat Urus. What do you call that? Sesi Libat Urus?
The roundtable dialogue or something
so
like
the
that.
roundtable dialogue, right? The powwow was that, not the Congress. The Congress, if I remember correctly, was in March or April. The powwow, the Sesi Libat Urus, or the roundtable discussions that we've had with various parties, right? When I say various, I'm not just talking about the Bumiputera-centric parties. I'm also talking about the whole ecosystem, right? The Bumiputeras as well as the non-Bumiputera entities in various clusters, in education, in entrepreneurship, in industries, and the various industries that exist in Malaysia, from construction to automotive, whatever you have.
And just for a record, I was in one of those Sesi Libat Urus organized by Tan Sri Norazan.
You are?
Yes, talking about the higher education ecosystem. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is through his Minda UKM.
Yes.
And this is Tan Sri Norazlan, who was the former Vice Chancellor of UKM.
Yes.
Right? So
He's
was
still
a
with
quite...
Minda, yeah.
Yes.
And he's a very
quite
outspoken
inclusive.
person. He's a very nice chap to argue with, actually. And one of the things that were discussed was, if we have so many people helping the same target group, then what's the point? So that's when we... and of course, the overarching issue, taking away from Bumiputera policy, the overarching issue is the Prime Minister, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, has talked about how the government needs to shrink and streamline some of the agencies and ministries. And this, the previous budget that he presented was the third budget that he has presented in his role as the Finance Minister / Prime Minister. And by the way, that people joke that is already a remarkable feat, because in the previous two administrations, they couldn't even get past two budgets. So this is the third budget. Wow. But the three budgets that were presented, and you know this better than I do, because you keep tabs on this better than I do. You know that for a fact, there were a lot of announcements in amalgamations as well as mergers of agencies.
Yeah.
And if it has not been made clear before, it has been made clearer since then, the last budget that was presented in October, November.
Yeah, and for the record, one example that involves MITI would be the absorption of InvestScale into MIDA, the Malaysian Investment Development Authority, of which I'm a board member. And recently, in the latest budget, was also the announcement that Matrade and Halal Development Corporation would be merged together. Just some examples.
Just some examples. And of course, away from what do you call this, MITI, I think CAM as well, or the Civil Aviation Group, is merged with DCA, if I'm mistaken, or something like that.
Yes, the Civil Aviation Authority is going to be merged with, is in the process of being merged with another entity.
And so is one of the three agencies, Bumiputera agencies inside Kementerian Ekonomi, Equinas, is in a way has been merged with PNB through Yayasan Equity Nasional Yen with Yayasan Pelaburan Bumiputera, YPB, the primary owner of the PNB. So nobody is safe. If you think that you're going to be comfortable with the agency that you're operating in, don't be thinking that you're going to be there forever. In fact, the very purpose of governmental agencies or company limited by guarantees or similar, it's mostly you're supposed to be much, much more efficient and much, much more aggressive than a government-run enterprise. That's why agencies are being created, because you want that power, that punch, right?
You want to be more focused, you want to be more aggressive in certain areas.
So it's horse on blinders. And the Minister of Economy as well as the Minister of Urban Development made that clear repetitively throughout the various programs of the roundtable discussion, and then of course it culminated into the big Bumiputera Congress that took place early part of last year, that basically highlights these are the focus areas, and there would be little to no overlaps in terms of who does what. I can't speak for other agencies, But for me, for Yayasan Peneraju, that's why we exited the high school program. That's why we terminated the medical specialist program. That's why we exited the TVET program. Because we believe that other agencies can do these things better than us. And we doubled down our bets on professional training as well as technology training, because not only do we see this as a dire need for us to grow competencies of Bumiputera talents in this space, the country needs talents in this space. When we talk about shortages of accountants, we're not just talking about shortages of Bumiputera accountants. The country needs 60,000 accountants.
Yes.
There's none. Like, okay lah, none, I'm just rating lah. 33,000. We're over 55% there. CFA, per capita, we are less than 10th of what Singapore has, and Singapore has less than 10th of what Hong Kong has. And Hong Kong is what the world would see it as a financial capital. So if we dream of becoming a financial capital, we shouldn't be benchmarking against per capita ratio of CFA charter holders in Singapore. We should be benchmarking against Hong Kong. And we're a mile away. So I have the numbers in my phone, but generally speaking, it's so far away. So pemetaan semula in terms of remapping of our mandate has to be clearer, and became so clear after the Bumiputera Congress. Now the question is in the execution, which actually it should have been from a long time ago. So if we know what we're supposed to do, we also, much more importantly, must know what we're not supposed to do.
Okay.
And that is where the overlapping always is, especially when it comes to overlapping ministries or competing ministries, especially when it comes to ministries coming from various factions of the coalition of the government, let alone outside of the coalition and together in the government as a smorgasbord or roja of an entity. So that was clear. And the leadership that was given by the Prime Minister was so unequivocally clear that the ministers now understand the ideas, and now the ministers can then impart those kind of clarity to the governmental agencies that they are in charge of. So when they are looking at these kind of clarity, it becomes clearer and easier on the part of executors, people like me. We have a monoline business. We should be sticking to this monoline business. And if we stray away, we should be brought to book.
Yeah, so I think this is a very important point, because there are a lot of skeptics out there who point to other experiences in the past that says, hey, this is unfair to, let's say, the non-Bumiputera community. But my sort of like pushback, that I've talked about publicly and also privately, is that, look, there are certain occupations, there are certain sectors where the majority population, Bumiputera from Malaysia and also from West Malaysia and also East Malaysia, that needs that kind of catalytic assistance, so to speak. And if, let's say, we want to grow the larger Malaysian economy, we want to improve the larger talent and also professional ecosystem, we need all boats to be lifted, right? And I think this is something that our audience and our listeners also should be more cognizant about.
You're right, and hence why at YP, again, I speak on behalf of YP, yeah? At YP, the toughest management meeting that we've ever had, we started at sometime around 9 in the morning, we ended well into midnight, was to answer one question. That meeting, that very long meeting, was internal meeting, me and my management, was to answer this: what is our vision for Yayasan Peneraju? I'm a very strategic guy. I take it seriously, vision, mission, and objectives, because as I alluded to earlier, vision is something that you have to see. It has to be clear. So we put it, after so many iterations and debate, and we identified what our thesis is, our investment thesis, which is to accelerate Bumiputera talents at the global stage. We don't want to compete with fellow Malaysians. I mean, we do, but we should be working collaboratively and build an ecosystem to do what? To compete at the global stage. And at what rate? We want to accelerate. There are efforts. I'm not discounting some of the efforts that are currently being done. But that word that you used just now, catalytic moment of us trying to induce some areas and create a policy that can target specific need case and make that catalytic growth happen at an accelerated pace. That's why we coded it as such, where YP's vision now is accelerating Bumiputera talents at the global stage, because we have to. The with the advent of AI, with the rise of geopolitical tensions, with the leadership of Prabowo in Indonesia, Trump in US, and China, we need to be very, very globally competitive. And the moment is right here. And you can speak to this better than I can. What I can do right now is to make sure that we just want to make it equitable for all. And I know there will be naysayers out there. And by the way, those reasons are valid, right? They make good arguments. But based on my conversation as recent as 3 days ago with Hock An of ICEA's Yusof Ishak Institute, he's a senior fellow there. You know him very well.
At the event where I think Rafizi spoke about inequality in the country.
That's right. With the World Bank, was organized by the World Bank. I had a conversation with him on air, and I quoted him on his latest research paper, which basically made a plea. Hock An argues that let's be honest and self-reflective in terms of our policies right now at the national level. We should be thinking about needs-based rather than race-based.
Okay.
My pushback is, I completely agree with you, but I would like to make the argument that needs-based for some of the sectors require Bumiputera participation. So I'm all for needs-based. This is how I define what I need.
Yeah, so actually on that point, I won't push back that much. But I think what has happened in the past, and I'm sure you agree, would be probably the lack of transparency, mismanagement of some of these programs.
I mean, not just this, but many others. But
sure.
Yes.
Yeah. But what is your response in terms of what are some of the things that you have done as CEO to try to make this more transparent? And maybe also follow up on this. You recently put on LinkedIn that you will change a bit of the funding model in terms of how you wouldn't fund the institutions that teach these programs, but you'll fund the students directly. How does that jive into the larger transparency
The
picture?
biggest thing that I've done in this role as CEO of Yayasan Peneraju is change the funding model. Okay, that is the biggest thing. Of course, I would like to tout that is the biggest thing when it comes to organizational impact. But what I'm actually proud of is the rebranding, because I like branding.
Sure.
Yeah. But the impact on the funding structure is actually quite critical. The board asked us to have a rethink in terms of how we make things optimal. You know this as well, but your viewers don't. I can assure you of that. There is a key performance index that governments must spend development budget.
Yeah, by the end of the year.
By the end of the year.
Yeah.
In fact, you will be deemed as a failure if you did not spend. So in the end, around mid-year, you see a rush of government agencies and ministries just spending. Spend. Tabo duit. Okay, there's a few problems here. Number one, are you spending it in the right places? Number two, are you optimizing spending? Number three, is this the right way to do things, right? When your DE, your development expense is just there to be spent. So the rethink that happened at Kementerian Economy is stop with this whole notion of we have to spend. Yeah, we need to spend. I get it, because that really drives the economy. But make sure that we're spending in the right way. And yes, while you have that KPI to spend, the problem is not on the taking the money out and spend. The problem is making sure that your spending is optimized. So yes, you're supposed to spend, but you're not supposed to just toss the money into the ocean. You're supposed to spend it correctly and in the right places, at the right amount, at the right time, by the right people, to the right person.
So for YP, what
for
is
YP, we took the biggest pivot ever since our inception. On the 26th of February 2025, 1 week after we celebrate our 13th anniversary, we are making that announcement to the public that for the first time ever, a scholar can now apply directly to Yayasan Peneraju to be funded by Yayasan Peneraju to pursue his or her choosing of education, and that person will be completely liable in terms of paying it back to Yayasan Peneraju. Okay. It's no longer free money. It is actually a loan. They might not necessarily have to pay the entire borrowings outright, but there will be some portions of which they have to pay back. So if they took $10, they have to return a certain portion, right?
There's a big change because previously all the expenses to do with professional qualification, it's as far as I understand, 100% paid for by YP.
Yes, you understood it correctly previously. But now it's not. Now it's going to be payable. Like I said, there's a lot of terms and conditions, asterisks here and there, but fine, right? And if you take a certain amount, below 15,000, we can convert that into a scholarship. We can, right? Because there is still the element of social assistance that we need to give to the public. We don't forget that element of social impact to the public. But if you take up a long-term program, a 5-year program, for instance, to take up financial foundation in accounting and then later on ACCA, that would cost around 150,000. Yes, you can take a loan from us and you have to pay back roughly about 20% back. So about 30,000 to 40,000 you have to pay back. Now that is a shift. Number one, because now you have skin in the game. Itu kalau you pass, then you have to pay back 23%. If you have scorn, you have to pay back the entire amount, 150,000. And your guarantors have to be earning. It's no longer a pensioned or retired parent. You have to have show. You have to show that you have the means to pay back. Basically, what we're doing is we're bringing the credit risk of our borrowers to be similar to that of the credit risk of an unsecured borrower for a regular bank. Okay. Meaning that if you're good enough for a bank to give a credit card or personal loan, you're good enough to receive our loan. Study loan from Yayasan Peneraju.
So the main idea behind this is a scalability issue. Because of limited funds, you want to be able to change the funding model so that you can fund more people, and they would also be part of the virtuous cycle where they pay back a certain amount, and then your pool of funds will still be something that can sustain later activities.
Yes, this is in the big context of sustainable financing, and that virtual cycle that I speak of non-stop so far is because of that, Kian Ming. And this year, previously we've done about 3,000 to 4,000 enrollments per year. Using this new funding model that we will announce on the 26th of Feb by Rafizi, we are able to grow that number close to double to 7,200. That's just this year alone. I have instructions from my board to grow it even further to 10,000 next year and more in the years to come if we can succeed well. That number of increasing the coverage of people getting funding for their trainings and certifications and programs allows us or enables us to achieve our vision, which is again to accelerate Bumiputera talents and their competencies. How can we say that we want to accelerate if we're not accelerating the number of enrollment? Right? So that is the focus that we're doing right now, because if we fail to accelerate even in the number of enrollment, we are not really achieving or going to realize our own vision. And the only way for us to encroach that number of number is, as you rightfully put it, to make sure that it is viable and fund it directly. Now, if people want to ask, so what was the funding model before this? Right? If we're funding directly, who were we funding before this? Okay, we were funding the institutions. In fact, the way we did it before is also justifiable. It's no longer applicable today. But when Yayasan Peneraju first started out, remember Yayasan Peneraju is not big. We have about 120 headcount today. And 120 headcount, when I first joined, was actually 80 headcount. But because we have optimized the funding, we have also streamlined how we spend. I can now hire up to 20 extra headcounts just by tweaking and optimizing my OPEX, my OE, my operating expenditure. So that again allows us for me to have more people to come in. And optimizing Yayasan Peneraju is not in terms of creating the number of people who work for us. We have to create enablers. So for the first time ever, Yayasan Peneraju has created a technology services team where we divide it into data ops, infra ops, as well as dev ops. That dev ops is currently, as we speak, working round the clock, creating the applications that we need in order for us to get faster and greater number of enrollments with the less number of people needed. So we're really inculcating AI into how we do things for the first time ever. And this is a lot of work. And they run a lot. These dev, they just, it's by nature, they work on a project basis. They work for 6 months, they chow. And it's who they are, right? And they demand salary. So I have to figure out how I can break that culture of, you kalau manager, you kena gaji gini. Kalau you assistant manager, gaji. No, that doesn't apply for some specialized skill set and technical skill set.
So it's almost as if it's like an internal startup entity, to roll out these, develop and then roll out these products.
It's
and then
expensive,
after that,
Yan Ming.
For the initial part, the development costs,
but it's cheaper than hiring or outsourcing. It's cheaper. It's cheaper than getting some IT firm out of either Estonia or Mumbai. And it's not developing competencies inside my organization.
Correct.
Helping people internally, and we hire Malaysians exclusively. So now Malaysians, especially those that have the skill set of dev or developer, are now developing their trainings and skill set inside an organization which we were supposed to help born in the first place.
Yep.
So now we have data engineers, we have data analysts, we have database managers, we have all these people, all these competencies. And now they are now doing the work that is needed from the organization. Now, on top of that, we now can make sure that we can optimize the DE as well. We have culled program partners, we have cult program managers. These are the intermediaries that Yayasan Peneraju used to hire to get the scholars on behalf of the learning and training institutes. Like I said, it was needed then because Yayasan Peneraju was far smaller, and you don't have enough bandwidth, let's say 20 or 30 headcounts, to enroll up to 1,000
So now
people.
you are confident that you have the marketing ability internally to be able to go out and attract these larger number of
Yes,
students.
we did it in stages in terms of terminating our relationships with our program partners and program managers. And it was a cordial termination. I mean, we all know that they were there for a function. And last year, we started terminating one over the other. And internally, the competencies, my colleagues inside Yayasan Peneraju are now doing slowly the marketing and enrolling themselves. And that was in stages in terms of gradually terminating. But moving forward, this year, it's completely enrolled by us. So then the only question is, can 120 people enroll 7,200 people? The answer is yes, but only if we use technology.
Yeah, and that would also include things like monitoring the paying back of students that are under this program.
Speaking of which, recovery has been a big work for us. Recovery is when we give money to the scholar and they have to pay back. Recovery, previously the accounts receivables for Yayasan Peneraju is below 20 million. This year it's 100 million, meaning that we are expecting about 100 million people to pay back their study loans to us in the years to come.
Pay back about 100 million of study loans.
100 million of study loans. Like I mean, this is cumulative. I'm talking about as an entity, accounts receivables to Yayasan Peneraju is 100 million ringgit. Previously it was 20 million ringgit. So I have increased our balance sheet by 80 million ringgit in terms of our liabilities and our assets. So accounts receivables, asset, I have increased our asset by 80 million. These people are going to start paying back. And interestingly enough, we're running a campaign, 13 for 30, 13 years anniversary. You can pay back bullet payment. Either you use account 2 or you pay back using cash. But bullet lah, single shot. You get 3% off from your total loan amount.
Yeah, similar to PTPTN. Maybe just one last bit here. You mentioned, obviously you have the support of the minister and the board on some of these major changes, especially to the funding model. I checked your website yesterday, and I realized that the board composition currently, it is the minister and also the KSU, whom I know as well. He used to be the state secretary for Selangor and a good guy. For transparency, I'm a board member at MIDA. There's a quorum, to hold your meetings and all that, and also to have the board meetings on a regular basis. Why is it the case that you only two board members? One is the minister, one is the KSU. Are you able to explain?
When we talk about composition of board members, we always talk about it in terms of the purpose and snapshot. So the purpose is ensuring that the governance process is held, and of course fiduciary duty is being executed and exhibited by the board members. Number 2 is a snapshot. So currently, Yayasan Peneraju, as we all know, is currently going through a transformative period. And sometimes with transformation, you require hyper laser focused attention to detail. And of course, the board members, my current board members, as well as the management, are aware of the requirements by the government, as well as by various guidelines and frameworks, including, say, for instance, the ABMS 37001, the Anti-Bribery Management System scoring, the guidelines for integrity set by SPRM, Akta SPRM or SPRM Act, the Malaysian Good Governance Framework as well. We are very cognizant of these items. And further board members will be added as in due course. In fact, Raju, for instance, have added their latest board member as well, a representative from the Minister of Finance. So they have 3, but they're working on adding some more. So it's not that the organization just needs 2 board members. It's not like that. It's actually the administration requires more board members, and more will be added in place. But one thing is more important is that, are we executing that fiduciary duty, and are we making sure that the things are being transparent? The answer is yes. So for the first time since 2015, we are publishing our annual report. And that, it was not done before. I'm not too sure why, but it has never done before. So this year is the first year that we're publishing an annual report for all to see, for transparency purposes. Second is that we are part of the over 1,800 organizations that have been either self-elected or appointed or instructed by Jabatan Audit Negara or the National Audit Department to undergo a e-self audit. Number 3, we have, for the first time ever, instituted an integrity unit inside Yayasan Peneraju. First of all, it's required by the law. Second of all, I don't know whether people are aware, one of the reasons why organizations, especially government-related organizations, are not instituting an integrity unit is because they don't have the manpower or the money, the budget for it. But because
for government ministries, they have to have lah. But I think for the agencies,
in fact, it's being housed and personalized by SPRM members, as you are rightfully aware. But for agencies, I have to ask myself, have I done best effort basis to create enough headcount and enough money to have that headcount? I was working overtime for this, Kian Ming. Nak cari duit. Save money.
So it's going to be.
So now we have an integrity unit, and then we have the internal audit. Soon the risk management unit function will also go under the assurance part, and these 3 or 2 functions will report to the board audit and board risk committee, so board subsidiary committee. So we are there in terms of cognizant of what we're intending to do. But just like any other transformation process, we are still part of transforming ourselves. And the best that we can do is, these are the things that we're going to do, but things have to come in place. Everything comes in the right full time.
So just maybe just again for transparency, what is your annual budget? Are you able to, because this is also public knowledge.
I am able, and I think so. The previous questions, you sound like a broadcaster. This one, you sound like a parliamentarian. And it is a question that is being asked at the parliament from time again.
And it will be in your annual report as well, right?
Yes.
I'm sure.
The development budget that we've been receiving on average is 170 million ringgit. And the number of people that we have trained is 75,000 people. And of course,
sorry, when you say 170 million ringgit for the development budget, that is the annual budget, or that is something that you've had over a period of time?
No, that's the annual budget.
Okay, yeah. And then on the OPEX side, on the operational side?
Operational side, we are very low. 60 million.
Okay. 60 or 16?
16 bang. Kalau 60 aku.
Okay. Yeah. Just for clarity there.
I'll have an office in KLCC instead of,
Yeah, but right now you're sort of like having your office together with Khazanah, right? If I'm not mistaken, at UM.
Yeah.
Okay, just to wrap up, other than the big announcement in February and some of the big changes and also branding that you're doing, you're going to be sort of like in your second year already. Any other big plans that we should be aware of?
Enough lah plans. I mean, my God. I mean, when you talk about pivoting, you cannot be pivoting all the way. You break everything, spine, everything.
Okay. Yes. So do whatever it is, the 3 pillars that we talked about, do it well. Funding model, some rebranding, outreach, enhancing internal capacity and capabilities. One last question. Do you miss being in the media?
Absolutely.
So then if let's say an offer comes in for you to take on some sort of a management position with maybe some hosting gigs on the side, would that be something that you will consider in the future?
Okay, look, this is the part where I have to be really candid lah. If there was a role to be in management of a media company or broadcaster, I'm not that interested. I'm interested to be holding the mic.
Okay.
But at the same time, I have to realize that sometimes my competencies are much more important than my desires. So I believe that I'm doing what I can in what I am trained for, which is to run management. Now, do I believe that there are better CEOs than me? Of course, there are plenty of other CEOs better than me. But do I think that I can do a better job as a CEO, knowing that these are my competencies, my training, and my experience? I think so. So, need space. I have to do what is needed by the country, by society, and by my community. And that is running an organization. So I think that is superseding anything else. Now, in my spare time, do I have time to talk, own a podcast show? Of course. I would like to own a podcast. In fact, I was talking to Peter. I want to rent his studio because I want to restart my old podcast. Tiba. In fact, you are one of the first few guests, and your episode was fantastic. Actually, pushed in the numbers. But to what end, right? And for you to have this podcast, you should cherish it because you're a rather fantastic interviewer, and people should know that. The questions that you ask are not just fair, but also interesting and intelligent. And I think you should really harness that.
I think Peter and I will want to do more of these kinds of interviews. With that, I'd like to thank you so much, Ibrahim,
Hope that helps.
For clarifying and also for giving us previews and also exclusive insights into what you are doing at the CEO of Yayasan Peneraju. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.